Hi, it's Wednesday, and that means it's time for another video edition of Widower Wednesday. I'm Abel Keogh, author of the book Dating a Widower, and today we're going to talk about three questions for anyone out there who's wondering where they stand in their widower's heart. I'm going to give you three questions that you can ask a widower, and you will know exactly where you stand in his heart, whether or not he loves you and whether or not he wants to spend the rest of his life with you, or whether he's unsure. These three questions are a surefire way to know that. Because let's face it, there is nothing worse than being in a relationship with a widower and not knowing where you stand in his heart. I've talked to women who have been dating a widower for years and are more or less living with a widower, and they still, after all this time, they don't know where they stand. Now, I know there's lots of you watching this that are saying, well, Abel, it's pretty easy. If a widower loves you, he's going to show you his love through actions and sacrifice. And that's true. A widower who loved you will show his actions through love and sacrifice. But I also understand that that doesn't necessarily resonate with women. They have a desire to hear the widower say I love you, or hear the widower say I see a future with you, or they want the widower to be able to express verbally where this relationship is going. So I completely understand that. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to give you three questions that you should be able to ask a widower, and you'll know exactly where you stand in his heart. Now these aren't three questions you ask on a first date. Okay, these are questions you ask when you feel that you're falling in love with them, or the widower's giving you some indication that he's looking for a serious relationship, things like that. Okay, these are questions you should be able to ask after a couple months of fairly serious dating. These are not questions you should necessarily ask again on a first date. So here are the three questions. I'm going to give you the three questions. After I give you the three questions, we'll go back and we'll talk about answers to these questions. We'll go into a little more detail, but I want you to sit and I want you to think about these three questions for a minute. So three questions you can ask a widower, and you'll know exactly where you stand in his heart. The first question is, do you love me? The second question, are we in an exclusive relationship? Third question, where is this relationship going? Now, for widowers who are ready to move on and open their hearts, they should be able to give you answers to any of these questions without any hesitation. So, for example, the first question, do you love me? This is pretty much an easy yes or no question. If they hesitate, if they can't say, well, I'm not sure, the answer is no. Now, this doesn't mean things can change, but keep in mind that men and widowers, they usually know fairly quickly whether or not they can spend the rest of their lives with that person. So if you've been dating a widower more than a year, or you're living with a widower and you're basically having like regular sleepovers and stuff, and he can't tell you that he loves you, it's not going to happen. There's nothing you can do or say that's suddenly going to change his mind. So unless you're happy in a relationship with someone that can't give their full heart to you, it's time to move on. But again, widowers who know they're in love, they'll have an answer to that question. They're not going to hesitate. They're not going to say no. They're going to say, yes, I love you, or of course, or something like that. You know the widower and how he responds, but there shouldn't be any hesitation on giving you an answer to that question if he's fully in love with you. Second question, are we in an exclusive relationship? Again, this is a pretty cut and dry yes or no answer and should be easy for them to answer. Now, men who aren't ready for commitment, they look to keep their options open. They may be dating you and stuff, but they're, I don't know, maybe they're still on a dating site, or they're looking at other women when they're out. If they can't answer yes to this question, or they say they want to keep their options open, then they're simply not ready for an exclusive relationship, or they don't want to be in an exclusive relationship. Again, this can change, right? Maybe it's still early in the relationship and he just needs some more time to decide if he wants to go down that route. But again, I would say that if you're having regular sleepovers, if you're spending a lot of time together, and he can't commit to an exclusive relationship, it's probably time for you to not be in an exclusive relationship with him either and keep your options open. But again, easy question to answer. They shouldn't hesitate if they feel like you're in an exclusive relationship. And the third question, where is this relationship going? Now, this isn't quite cut and dry as a yes or no as the first two, but widowers who are ready to spend the rest of their life with you will have an answer to this question, and they won't be shy about it. Maybe their answer is, I see us getting married at some point. Maybe it's, I see us moving in. But they'll have a roadmap or an idea in their head of where they see their life with you tomorrow, the next month, the next year, the next decade. They kind of have a roadmap in their mind. Now, you got to be sure that, like, say a widower, you say, hey, where do you see this relationship going? And the widower says, well, I see us eventually moving in together. Now, you need to make sure that his roadmap matches up with your roadmap. If you're looking to get married, right, if you want to get married and the widower says, well, I see us, whatever, living together, but it doesn't include marriage, you need to make sure you're actually on the same page there. Or, again, if you're okay with not being married, and don't sacrifice, your standard just because he's a widower and you like the guy. That's a different video topic. So widowers who can see, themselves spending the rest of their life with you, whatever that means, they'll be able to tell you exactly what that means. They'll be able to say, yeah, I see us, whatever, moving in together, having a family, kids, whatever. Again, depending on the circumstances, they should be able to have that roadmap for you. You just need to make sure that that his roadmap and your roadmap matches up. Because if it doesn't match up, it doesn't matter if he sees a future with you if he doesn't want the same thing that you do, because eventually you'll be unhappy with that. Now, widowers, well, again, they just know. They know, right? I mean, like when I was dating Julie, when the question did come up, she didn't quite phrase it as where is this relationship going. It was more of, how serious do you see this relationship getting, or something like that. I could flat out tell her, I said, well, I want to get married to you. That's where I see this going, and that's where she wanted, and it all worked out, and we all lived happily ever after, right? But the point is that I could tell her, in fact, any of these three questions. I could, if Julie ever asked, do you love me? I could answer yes. If she wanted to know if we were in an exclusive relationship, I could answer yes. And if she wanted to know where the relationship was going, I could tell her where I saw the relationship going. Maybe our time frames were a little bit different. In fact, I told Julie that, yeah, I can see us getting married, and that was a good answer, and she was happy with that answer. But Julie's like, and this, by the way, was maybe 9 months after my late wife died when we had this conversation, and she said, that's great. I just want you to know that I don't want you to propose or anything until at least the year mark of your late wife's death, until, it's been a year since Krista died. So I did honor that. I would have probably done it sooner if she hadn't said something, but, we had the same basic direction. We lined up our timelines and things worked out. Now, I know that some of you are watching this and have some concerns. You're worried that asking these questions will come across as being too pushy, or you're thinking that the widower should volunteer this on his own. And to that, I say, step up and take control of your life. You're not being pushy, and it's not too soon, especially if you're having regular sleepovers, or if you feel that you're in love, or if you have concerns about him being ready to move on. These are conversations you need to have. You're a grown woman, act like it. Take control of your life and speak up. Do not simply wait for the widower to get his act together. Widowers interpret silence. If you aren't bringing up anything about being in an exclusive relationship or where you think this relationship's going, you know how widowers interpret that? You're cool with things just the way they are. In fact, it's good for widowers to have these questions, to know that you want answers to these questions, because they need to force themselves to make up their mind whether or not you're worth it. And if you hesitate and don't ask because, again, some of you are probably thinking, well, he's only been a widower recently, or he's still grieving. Well, guess what? Don't cut him slack just because he's still grieving. He's out there dating. Is he sleeping with you? Come on, guys. If a widower is doing all this, why are you worried about if he's still grieving? He's put himself out in the dating game. At some point, he needs to man up and be able to answer these questions. Don't cut him slack just because he's a widower. Come on. If you were dating a divorced guy, would you be hesitant to ask these questions? Or a single guy? Are these questions you'd be hesitant to ask? Don't give him a reason to make excuses. Men know soon. Men know whether or not they can spend the rest of their life with you, if they're in love with you, if you're in an exclusive relationship, and they know these things fairly quickly. This doesn't take them years to figure out. I know in my books and stuff I say if it's more than a year, you have your answer. Most men even know it sooner than that. So don't be afraid to ask these questions. And you know what? If the widower can't answer these questions, then I think that's your answer right there. Give him, really, if you can't answer these questions, the best thing you can do for him is give him time and space to think about it. Basically, give him the gift of missing you. And that time alone will be enough for the widower to decide whether or not you're worth it. It'll be the kick in the butt they need. But again, ask those three questions. Do you love me? Are we in an exclusive relationship? And where do you see this relationship going? These are not questions you should be afraid to ask or make excuses about asking. You ask these questions, you put these questions out there to a widower after, again, you're having regular sleepovers, you feel that you're in love with him. Fill in the blank as far as when is the right time to ask, but do not wait years and years and years, or even months and months and months to ask these questions. Widowers know, and the better you can get these answers from widowers, and I guess I will say, if they love you, they should be able to verbalize it, but they'll also show it through their actions. If they're in an exclusive relationship, again, they'll verbalize it, but they should show it also through their actions. And again, if he knows where the relationship is going, let's say like he wants to get married, he says, hey, I love you enough to marry you someday. Again, his actions should back it up, and you should see him progressing towards marriage. Do not cut him slack just because they're a widower. You are grown up. You should expect grown up behavior from the men that you date, and from yourself as well. I'm Abel Keogh, author of the book Dating a Widower. Please feel free to subscribe or watch another video. If you want to schedule a coaching session, you can do so in the links below. I will see you next Wednesday.